Hi, this is Mark Waid, writer of Superman Birthright, and you're listening to Krypton Report.
Up in the sky, look!
It's a bird!
It's a plane! It's the Krypton Report!
Welcome to the Krypton Report Podcast, presented by the Southgate Media Group.
The All Things Kryptonian podcast, including Superman and Supergirl.
We discuss games, movies, cartoons, TV shows, and comics.
Krypton Report Pod can be found on Facebook, Twitter, Skype, YouTube, and Instagram.
And if you want to drop us a line, send it to kryptonreportpod@gmail.com.
We are on Patreon under Southgate Media Group.
And our official merch page is tpublic.com. Search Krypton Report.
Now on with the show.
This episode is our third part of our Death of Superman, not retrospective, but just look as today we talk about the new DC Warner Brothers animated film, The Death of Superman. This film is different than the past iteration. It's a little bit more true to the story, and it is part of the current DC animated film continuity. And I can't talk by myself because then it's boring. So I have with me none other than the legend, the man, the might, the muscle, Mr. James Cole.
Hey, how's it going? The muscle.
Well.
I like that one.
I am excited to talk about this, James. I mean,
me too.
Spoilers, like we thought about doing this as a review, but we thought, you know what? It's only an hour and 20 minutes. Let's do it as a commentary. And James and I have recorded a couple of commentaries that we've kind of tucked away for future episodes when we need something, when we're running behind or there's breaks on our schedule that we'll release to everyone. So we've really enjoyed doing our commentaries.
Yes, we have.
And I'll tell you what, this is, not to give too much away, but this is probably the best Superman film, cartoon, whatever you want to say, that I've seen in a long time.
Oh, yeah, you can fold it into the live action or not. I mean, it is very good. It is extremely true to the character, the story, the way they fold the comic into the current continuity of the films, the build up for part 2, the sequel. I mean, the voice acting, you go down the line. I mean, it's an excellent movie.
Now, let's take a quick moment here before, if anyone's listening and is wondering, what are they talking about continuity? The DC releases animated films, and some of them are standalones and some tie together. Starting with, and this is, you can debate this, and Justice League Flashpoint, the Flashpoint Paradox, is made like Flashpoint, the book, with the next film being Justice League War, which is kind of the birth of the New 52 era-esque-ness of these animated films. So we have Flashpoint, Justice League War, Son of Batman, Batman versus Robin, Justice League Thrones of Atlantis, Justice League versus the Teen Titans, Teen Titans The Judas Contract, Justice League Dark, Suicide Squad Hell to Pay, Batman Bad Blood, and now Death of Superman. A couple of them were out of order, but those are the continuity films.
Yes, they all connect, and I mean, I've enjoyed the continuity films. The ones that stand alone that are character specific, like Batman and now this Superman. Excuse me. They're very good. They capture the voice of the characters, and there are still other characters and other places that exist, and they nod to all of it. So they've done a very good job of building this animated continuity world.
And each film kind of is a jump forward in time in the fact that characters show up that weren't introduced in a film. Like they just happen to be there. Like if you have Hulu out there, Hulu has a lot of these films on it. I watched Justice League War, Thrones of Atlantis, Justice League versus Teen Titans, and Justice League Dark. Just the past couple of days, kind of just brushing up, revisiting this continuity with Superman, like the ones that have Superman in it, just to kind of make this film a little bit stronger, that it's a Superman that we have seen before. It's not just a Superman. So let's get into the film, and we'll talk about some of the other points I have. James and I are both queued up. We are 0.05 into the film. If you're looking at it, it is the Warner Brothers logo and says WB Animation. And we go on 4. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, and press play. So are you ready, James?
Yes. 1, 2, 3, play.
Ready? 1, 2, 3, play. Okay. Now, the first thing is, what's neat is this film starts off with the DC Films logo of the characters that we saw in Justice League. And I think it was in Wonder Woman too, wasn't it?
Yes, I believe it started with Wonder Woman.
But it's slower. Like with Wonder Woman and Justice League, it's like really quick. This is really slow, and it just says DC. And, you know, I kind of thought it was like the DC Films, but now I think it's just DC's new logo.
Yeah. And I'm okay with it. I'm not pressed that it's only in movies, that it's, you know, only in animation. I mean, own it, own all of it. You know what I mean? It's all under the DC brand. Own it all.
We have what looks like a bank robbery with police sirens, and we have 2 cops rushing to the scene. Who might they be? You know? But
Maggie Sawyer and Dan Turpin.
Exactly. So right there, those are their first introduction into the animated universe as far as the continuity.
As well as the inner gang coming out of the bank, robbing the bank with their high-tech suits, is Bruno Mannheim front and center.
And inner gang hasn't really been represented much recently in film, animation, you know, in any of the DC properties, period.
Yeah, it was pretty big in the 90s, but then it's definitely faded away as street level crime, especially come with a Superman story. You know, over the last couple of decades.
And I like the idea of like the street level crime.
So they got some high powered weapons though, blowing a cop car around, flipping it over,
and then like a little like whiplash thing wrapping around Dan's neck. Maggie's knocked out in the car. This is just a great intro. And it's weird watching without sound. I have we've watched it several times. So I know. Oh, there it is. You know, he goes to whip and hit Maggie, and Superman uses heat vision and cuts the tentacle thing, then taps him on the shoulder. We see
just the Superman symbol reflected in his visor.
And then we're just seeing the blue and red streak.
And you know what? I must say, in this movie, the sound that they use for the super speed, it's just a whizzing noise, like zoop, like right on through. You know, the sound that they use for Superman or for the Flash, anytime somebody's using that super speed, I like that noise. That sound effect is new for this.
I agree. I do want to point out, Junia really likes the look of this costume and animation. You know, it's very New 52 based, and I've been rewatching these films, and we watched this the other night. Junia You know, she's like, I like the look of that suit. And I think it looks good in animation. You know, sometimes in the comic, it looked more rigid and more like armor. And of course, later it was chained to cloth. But definitely in this, it looks more cloth. And you know what? I don't have a problem with it either. I like the high collar. The other thing is I really like the cape. And I like the cape. You know, I think the black symbol on the back is really cool. But I like the cape also because of how it came to be in the New 52 comics. It was Jor-El's that he took off and wrapped Cal in before he sent him, which I really like and I wish would have been better represented in a film. But I think it's important. You know, we're just pointing out things.
Yeah. What's really good about this movie, you know, it's the first solo Superman film since Superman Unbound.
Which was 5
right
years
there.
ago.
That was just before Man of Steel, I think.
Yeah.
When that came out. But yeah, it's the first solo Superman animated film in this entire line since Superman Unbound, and they really do a good job of expanding on Superman's world. You know, Metropolis, Turpin and Maggie Sawyer. They've got Bibbo here.
Well, I say, don't forget, this is our first Bibbo. And man, do I love Bibbo in this movie.
Yeah. He is like the ultimate Superman fan.
Yeah, it's great. Now I do want to point out a couple points I've realized. There's a Flash here to help.
Yep.
This is Jerry O'Connell voicing Superman. And what's interesting is if you go and you watch Justice League War, Superman, Wonder Woman,
and Green Lantern
are all voiced by different people. And then the next film, Thrones of Atlantis, has the cast that have stuck through every film. So it is a little just odd that they've done a great job in the continuity films of keeping the same voice actors and actresses. But they do change a little bit. And I'll say that because we do meet Lois in Thrones of Atlantis, and it is a different voice actress. She doesn't have a huge part, but she is there. We also meet Lex Luthor at the very end of Thrones of Atlantis in a post-credit scene, and he's at the beginning of Teen Titans, Justice League vs. Teen Titans. And it's a different voice actor. And this is the first time we really get Luthor as a character in the continuity. And I kind of had forgotten about his little introduction beforehand.
Yeah, I did as well.
Until revisiting all these films. Now, what's great, and I really appreciate this for this film, is Superman is voiced by Jerry O'Connell, and Lois Lane is voiced by Rebecca Romaine, who in real life is his wife. And I think that just brings a whole other level of emotion and power to the story that we're going to get with this film.
Yeah, they both do a very good job communicating with each other, whether it's Superman and Lois or Clark and Lois, and, you know, with her troubles with Clark as the story progresses. And then, you know, as her love for him later on, as we all know, I mean, the movie is the death of Superman. So after he dies, you know, she's very strong in the role then too.
I also want to point out, you know, Jerry O'Connell had voiced years ago in the Superman and Shazam film, Superman Shazam versus Black Adam. He voiced Shazam. At that time,
he voiced Shazam back when he was Captain Marvel in Justice League Unlimited.
Okay.
So he's been with the DC animated films and television. He's been with DC Animation doing voice work for a solid 12 years now, at least. At least.
Oh, that's got to be more than that, maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
I forget if it was 2003 or was it 2006?
For Unlimited?
Yeah.
I want to say 6.
Or when they started. Yeah. They started somewhere.
Because I want to say 3 is when Justice League started. But I want to take a step we were thinking, I really like Lois Lane in this film. I don't know, there's just...
See, and actually right here, this real quick, this scene that we're seeing of the Kryptonian images and stuff, this is our first image of the Kryptonian with a visor, which is going to play heavily into the next film.
I also want to point out that rewatching all those animated films, Superman does state in Justice League War, he is the sole survivor of Krypton. So far in these animated films, we haven't been exposed to a Supergirl or a Zod or anything like that. Superman is the only Kryptonian.
Well, it also gives them a lot of room to expand, this being the first one, and then Reign of Superman due out early next year. After his return, if they continue on making more individual films, they have that time now to build the world of Superman in continuity with a Supergirl and a Zod.
And, not to get too far ahead of our conversation.
They have a fantastic Doomsday in this movie.
Yes. Solomon wishes he was here, but he is out right now watching some live bluegrass music being played.
Ooh, fine.
And what I was going to say is, I totally forgot what I was going to say. Oh,
I'm sorry.
With the death of Superman and then, of course, his spoiler, return, I wonder if when he returns, if they'll bring more of a rebirth feel and look to some of this. Whereas, this is the New 52-esque. I say esque because, it's borrowed from there, but there is a lot of original designs, amalgamized storylines. Now, I do want to point out, Superman flew Lois back to the Daily Planet, and here we have Superman. He's now Clark, and Clark is talking with Lois, and it's fun to watch Lois's interaction with Clark because this is a huge point in this film. Lois likes Clark. She doesn't know his secret yet, but she's into and dating Clark, which is a big jump from the last film where Lois was into Superman.
Yes. Well, then we get, with this being, New 52-esque, he was dating Wonder Woman back between Justice League War and in Throne of Atlantis. They were together. They actually had that scene where they were sitting in the diner trying to blend in. Wonder Woman didn't, it's her first foray into kind of hiding in plain sight. And, they were holding hands, and Lois comes over, and Clark actually sits up and pulls his hand back from Diana's.
Which I love.
So they
it planted that
they've
seed.
laid those seeds.
Yep.
Yes.
And I love, because that was one thing I was going into this film a little like, huh? But it does address the Wonder Woman Superman relationship later in this film. It is addressed, and it's done tastefully, and we'll talk about more when we get there. And I love
they have a nice rapport together, and they don't, they both know where they both stood in reference to who they are and what they do, and that he's with Lois and she's not with him.
Exactly. And it helps transition this story well. And I like the fact that he's scared to tell her he's Superman. I like the fact that Lois likes Clark, because too many times she loves Superman. I mean, you go back and you watch the Chris Reeve movies, Lois is not interested in Clark at all. But then
in the least.
And that includes Superman Returns as well. But if you go back and you watch, of course, Lois and Clark, I think, had an even Smallville. Well, Smallville's a little different because he was never Superman and Clark kind of thing. But, Lois and Clark did a great job of her kind of liking both. Now, we're at Star Labs. And this is our first introduction. We meet John Henry Irons, the man.
Yes, voiced by Cress Williams, who is currently Black Lightning on CW.
And he's wearing a Superman symbol T-shirt. Now, I will say, Cress Williams is a big Superman fan. There was a spot in Black Lightning where I watched where the camera pans over Jefferson's desk, and you can see him with his girls, and he's wearing a Superman t-shirt. Also, Chris Williams was a villain in an episode of Lois and Clark. He was like the voodoo man or something. I don't remember his exact character, but that's basically what he was. It was the early 90s.
Well, we ought to be able to see it coming up with the new DC universe.
I hope so.
Me too.
You know, and I like because they tease all 4 forms of the reign of the Superman in this film. And
they do. That's the good setup they have, introducing all of these characters who are going to be main characters in the next film.
I like that, you know, we continue the Silas Stone, Victor Stone story. Now, and I do have to say, I am glad that Shazam is absent from this film. Because I wouldn't mind having a Shazam-only film in the continuity. Right. Now we meet
he was only in a couple of things, you know, and he was a supporting character. So
he was in War and he was in Throne of Atlantis, and that's it.
Yep, he's just a supporting character. There's room for him to have his own stuff, especially since his character is going to be coming to the forefront in April.
Exactly. I almost surprised they don't have a film kind of, you know, to build him up. We see that Luthor is under some sort of house arrest. And what I can only feel is a cross thread from the Teen Titans versus Justice League. This time Luthor is voiced by Rainn Wilson. That's right, Dwight from The Office. And I will say he does a very good job. I mean, nobody's going to beat Clancy Brown, but he does a good job.
No, he does a very good job. The way they wrote this Lex Luthor, you know, they very much wrote the personality of him, you know, wanting to be the one who is looked up to, who's revered, and also wanting to be the one who eliminates Superman.
Yes.
You know, they got his personality right, even if he can be a bit over the top with his speeches and stuff.
Now we do meet Cat Grant for the first time in the continuity with a little bit of a ethnicity switch where she's now African American. And I like that, you know, she works for the Daily Planet, but like the TV news side. Mm-hmm. And her and Lois are kind of friends, actually.
Yeah, I like that. They do well together. They actually have real conversations about, even if it is about Clark. And then they introduce Lombard.
Lombard, who was greatly missed in BVS.
They kind of hinted at his misogyny in Man of Steel with the character who played him. But nothing ever comes close to the way he's written in the comics or the way he is in the movies, the way he was in Superman Unbound when Diedrich Bader voiced him there, and then his little bit part in this. But it's nice that they still, you know, they continue to expand the world of the people immediately around Clark Kent. People he works with, people in the building, you know, the people, the cops and things like that, that he works alongside of as Superman. And, I think Bibbo, his biggest fan. This is a fantastic film.
Yes. And this is okay, so now we're in space. And we're with the Henshaws. Hank and Terry are working on the space station. And we get a little bit of dialogue of, you know, the interaction. And Hank seems like a very nice guy. You know, like you kind of, you see little bits, of just how he is with his wife and the crew here. And Hank being, you know, spoilers, has a role to play in the next film.
Mm-hmm. as many people I'm sure will know at this point, Hank Henshaw was the original cyborg Superman.
And I like that they're going in that direction with this, talking back that this universe is kind of New 52. I'll use inspired more because that's kind of what kicked off Justice League War being, more of a version of Justice League Origin from the New 52.
Yes, the first 6 issues of Justice League.
We have a meteor. Doesn't it look like it comes
That came from a...
Yep.
Yeah, that came out of a boom tube. That's a boom tube. So I am very interested on where they're actually going to go with that fact. Because we know last time we saw a boom tube that wasn't generated by Cyborg was when Apocalypse and Darkseid came to Earth.
Now,
then we get a shot here of Lex Luthor in a red wig and a red beard, which is the way he looks in the book.
Because at that time, isn't he Lex Luthor Jr.? Like, it's very convoluted. And we just reread the book.
I think he was... Well, I mean, as the story goes, and I'm sure it expands to more stories outside of just, the death of Superman with Lex Luthor's character at the time. From what I recall, he's supposed to be the real Lex Luthor, but he is posing as, like, his son or something.
Yeah, as I said, very convoluted. But it's just a nice callback. He uses the wig and beard as a disguise to sneak out from his house arrest while making his employee wear his ankle bracelet.
Which is funny because you're not supposed to be able to get those off, but somebody of Lex Luthor's intelligence.
It's heartbreakingly sad how much Luthor is intelligent and what he could do and how he chooses to do and what he chooses to be.
Right.
He's got the smartest minds and people working with him, and he's just insulting them left and right as he enters the room.
Yeah. I mean, he is supposed to be one of the most intelligent people on the planet, and obviously he can't do everything himself, so he would have to have the smartest minds on the planet working for him. But the fact that in this one and, say in other animated forms where he actually does use his intelligence to do a lot of things, it's not just his money and the other brilliant minds who are doing everything. Actually having a Lex Luthor who uses that intelligence to do something, not just like seem like he's using his intelligence to be a criminal. I really like that Lex Luthor, which we don't ever get to see actually doing something with that intelligence.
Lex can be a very three-dimensional character, very rounded, very much layered. And that's the Lex I like to see portrayed, is where he sees himself more as the people's savior and a hero. And, he is the politician, the businessman, and he does bad things. But, that it's like Superman just can't catch him and pin it on Lex.
Yeah.
But there's, he's a reporter.
One thing that,
he has to have the evidence, the facts, and he can't get it enough to prove Lex's activities. Lex is always kind of one step. Now, the meteor, pieces, fragments are hitting the Excalibur. And this is what's sad is, Hank's just saying Superman will save us. Superman will save us.
He knows that he knows that they're in a world of hurt right now. They're in the line. Everything's breaking apart. There's nothing much he can do at this point. He kind of knows it, but that is pretty heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. That's the one thing that, there goes his crew and his wife. They get sucked out.
He says, Superman, I knew you'd come, and it's just the meteor. And boom, it hits. He continues flying towards Earth. Now we see it entering the atmosphere, burning up, and we see a figure strapped to the front of it.
Mm-hmm. Going back real quick, that's the one thing, I'm sure almost unanimously people can say that Michael Rosenbaum has been the best Lex Luthor.
Yes.
But that's the one thing that he lacked in there and he was very intelligent. He did a lot of smart things, but everything was always somebody doing something for him. It wasn't him doing as much. Honestly, the most that it was shown to be was his cloning come from season 10. Yeah. The cloning that ended up being his return in season 10, is that he did that stuff, but it was more like throughout the entire series, everybody else was doing something else for him. So
I do want to point out now that we're 25 minutes into this. Doomsday arrived at the 24th minute. In the other film, Superman Doomsday, we'd be almost at the part where the fight is over.
Yes.
The pacing for this film is great. We are at a part where Wonder Woman is fighting Cheetah, and Superman's fighting Metallo, and Superman and Wonder Woman are talking together. And he says something about Lois calling him Superman because it's a name that she gave him. And we find out they're like basically in the Justice League Danger Room. There's a Marvel reference for you, but
yeah, this is where they actually have that conversation. It's amicable between them. He says, she's his ex, and they're talking about his current relationship with Lois.
She says it was nice for a while. It's just as well. It wasn't very good at playing this masquerade of yours.
I like this towel. I don't sweat. Maybe
not on the outside.
Right.
I like that.
She knows him as a person,
Right.
And that even though he physically doesn't do it.
And that's like she knows Clark. That's Clark. It even shows that when he's Superman, and he's around the Justice League, he's himself, Clark. But when he's Superman, in the field, he has a little bit of an image to show, like the tough.
Yeah.
And Clark.
Well, she knows him as Clark. That's part of their conversation there when they were doing their sparring with the Cheetah and Metallo was, call me Superman, don't call me Clark, especially in the field.
Yep.
So she knows him as Clark. To her, he is Clark. He's not Superman. Superman to her is disguised.
I like how Lois makes Clark nervous.
Yeah.
He's Superman. Why should he ever be nervous? But Lois makes him nervous.
Yeah. Right. So now we're underwater. Lex Luthor, we're near the point where the meteor crashed. Lex Luthor has a submarine of people down to investigate the crash site, and they come across some Atlanteans.
Which is a nice
also
callback.
There. Yes, they're wearing the same armor or similar armor from Throne of Atlantis. So, but they're here to look. They're all here to investigate this crash. And man, when Doomsday comes out, it is brutal. I mean, the first two beings he comes across. I mean, it's coming up here in just a second. When he reaches out, he just grabs them by the head and just pops them like a grape, man.
You just see the blood.
It's just blood. Yeah, just smash, and then it's just nothing. The water's filled with blood.
I will say I like Doomsday as a villain in the sense that he isn't a character. He's just a force of nature. Just death and destruction. And it's just kind of nice to kind of have... We just saw a hand fly by.
Yes, he's literally ripped up to pieces.
Let's see if I can keep track of how many people he kills. We see him.
Well, you go ahead and run that tally, because I think there was 4 or 5 Atlanteans there. I'm not positive.
And I like that he's in the containment suit.
Yeah. And he is tearing this stuff up.
He just ripped apart the sub.
Yeah. There's 2 people floating away there.
Okay. That's 6 already. It's going to be a long tally. I need paper.
I was going to say, yeah, you're going to need paper. It looks like there's 3 there's 3 floating there, so that's 7. If we say there was 4 Atlanteans.
And there's Luthor
I know there's
watching
4.
on a live feed. And
what he says here, creatures survived a catastrophic entry, trek through space and a catastrophic entry to Earth. So the big blue Boy Scout's going to have some competition.
now we're at the Justice League having a board meeting, basically. And quick thing to point out in this film is Batman's costume is a little bit more blue now.
Mm-hmm.
And not the black, I didn't notice it the first time I watched it, but it is true.
My kids were just asking me last night watching it, why is Batman's suit blue? It's like, what? I mean, maybe it's a throwback to the 70s, the 1970s, where it was blue and gray.
It's like I said, there's leaps, like little things that move up in here. Martian Manhunter sitting there, as is
Hawkman is standing there.
We've never had an introduction to those characters, but they're here now. In Justice League versus Teen Titans, Jon Stewart was there.
I think that was Justice League Dark.
Or was it Justice League? You're right. It was. My mistake.
Yep.
I like how Flash and Hal Jordan are making fun of Batman having to go to a parent-teacher conference.
Tell me you're on the PTO. Batman on the PTO.
He's still glaring at me.
Yeah. Is he still glaring at me? He just growls at him.
And then
But you know what? For the voice of Hal Jordan, Nathan Fillion. He should have been Hal Jordan in the movie. Forget Ryan Reynolds. I like Ryan Reynolds, but
okay. All right. So
Nathan Fillion should have been Hal Jordan.
I've said this before recently. If you do Hal Jordan and you want to do a Green Lantern movie with multiple Green Lanterns, do the older Hal Jordan. Do Nathan Fillion. He's in great shape. He has a new movie, new series coming out this fall called The Rookie. It's about an older guy who decides to join the police force. Watch the trailer.
And I'm watching it.
You'll see he can still do it. And you already have, if you do these continuity films, an older Batman and having an older Hal Jordan and then a young Jon Stewart, or whoever else you pick for the other Green Lantern, would be great. Now,
absolutely. Have the veteran Green Lantern.
I want to throw back out that
they had
Superman was talking with Flash, who we find out Flash is having his rehearsal dinner for his wedding. And Superman's asking about, how do you tell her about this other side of you?
Yeah, asking if she knows about him being the Flash. And, said that she's known for a long time. And isn't he worried about her being in that life, the dangers of her knowing his secret? They do tell him that you can't be in a relationship unless you can share that stuff with them. Which is a conflict that Clark is having, through this first half of the film, whether or not to tell Clark that he is Superman. And because he's so secretive, that's the conversation that her and Kat have about how many secrets he has. And now we're at dinner with Clark and Lois, and Clark's parents are in town from Smallville, and they're telling Lois all these stories that she's never heard because she knows nothing about him.
And hold on, they just mentioned Clark's ex. They talked about Lana. They say Lana, not Lana. And then that swim girl, Lori, what was her name? Oh, Lori Lemaire. Clark has a thing for the L's. Just throwing that out there.
Yes. LL. He really likes LL.
And I want to say out that, like you said, this is Clark's parents. Much like the comic, Jonathan and Martha. Unlike in the New 52, where they were both dead.
Yes.
They're both alive here.
Or even in Superman Doomsday, which it was only Martha. Or what people see in the movies, that Jonathan dies and it's only Martha. Mm-hmm. In Lois and Clark, in this, he has both of his parents when he is still Superman, or by the time he becomes Superman.
And Lois is saying things about,
and just all of that just goes to show you that all these characters, as long as the voice is right for all of these characters, the surrounding world, the people they interact with, there are liberties to be taken for the stories that people want to tell, and that they work, and that they work in different stories.
We have Aquaman and Mera investigating the crash site, the dead Atlanteans, as Arthur makes his way
Aquaman,
to the surface.
Yeah, he sees large footprints leading out of the water.
Cyborg is maintaining, surveillance.
Shamar Moore has been Cyborg since Justice League War, and he is excellent.
Yes, he is. To me,
he has done it.
That's Cyborg's voice when he's not young and playful. I love the guy who does the voice for Teen Titans, but I feel like Shamar Moore has more of what I would feel is an actual voice for Cyborg.
Yeah. Which, all these continuity films and, seeing as, there's a voice and there's movement, things like that, they go to show that in today's age, Cyborg can be and can be an important part of the Justice League. That he doesn't have to be a Titan because he used to be a Titan because he was a teenager at the time.
Yeah, a lot of
that
people,
with today's world, all the computers and everything,
I feel that's why it was important. When they, when the New 52 launched, Cyborg was upgraded to a Justice League member, and of course that was part of why he was in Justice League, the film. And I think it works. I've come to like Cyborg more, and I think, like you just said, he's an important character for this day and age. Now, we are seeing a scene where there's a bear outside of a tent that has a camping couple scared. And all of a sudden we see blood splatter on the tent. What does that mean? Doomsday just killed a bear.
Yes.
And probably
she looks out, she sees Doomsday holding a dead bear. Okay, the bear drops, but after she sees the dead bear, she sees Doomsday holding her boyfriend lifeless in the scene. It's like
a Friday the 13th movie. And then we just get that hand coming down at her. Poor Brian. He didn't make it. And now it's the next day. So Doomsday has kind of been doing his thing quietly, just making his way.
Making his way through the wilderness, killing everything in his path.
Let's call back to the book and the other film where we see him killing wildlife, and we see him just, making his way to people.
I love this. I love how Kat and Lois interact. The voice acting is so great. They have such a real conversation. And it's not just like swooning over somebody. They're having a real conversation on her relationship.
Yes.
Buzz. Love how he's got a Justice League symbol.
Yeah,
you know who's calling. You know who's calling. And then Kat. That was weird.
And Lois thinks Clark's going to break up with her or something horrible. He wants to take her out to lunch and talk to her and tell her stuff. He goes to answer that phone.
And it seems like here with Wonder Woman standing at the monitors, they switch off on monitor duty.
Yes, it's a very good observation, And I like this conversation because she says, this lunch you have doesn't have anything to do with what we talked about. And he basically tells her, mind your own business. If the league needs me, contact me. And she's saying that we can handle this. We get a nice little shot of a small town outside the city where Doomsday has now invaded.
Yeah. And it's smoking. There's fires.
Throws a truck, Always got to throw that semi. This reminds me a little bit, I want to say, of the Battle of Smallville. Because, the gas station, the way he throws the cars. Here comes the police. And
he just chucks a car down the street. Like, the Jeep went end over end down the street like it was a bouncing ball.
They do a great job of showing us the brutality and power of Doomsday before he ever gets to Superman.
Like this large tanker, the bullets, this large tanker that explodes, like it doesn't even damage his containment suit yet.
And then, boom, he emerges from the fire, just punched one time the cop in the face and killed him, kicked the police car onto another cop, and then smashes another cop with the car. While this girl is videotaping it with her live streaming it with her phone. That looks like a BlackBerry. Yeah. And Doomsday saw her, and now he's coming to kill her. Like, he just kills whatever. I love the sound effect. Boom. Hawkman pops him in the face with his mace, and the containment suit tears. And his mace is supposed to be nth metal, which is supposed to be extremely powerful. And look what it's doing. So we have Flash, Batman, Hawkman, Green Lantern have all arrived on the scene. Doomsday grabs Hawkman.
Wrong Hawk.
Well, I'm looking at. We see Doomsday's eye, is what I was looking at. Where his containment suit.
Oh, okay. Right.
I just kind of put it together, and Hawkman's down. Like Hal Jordan put him off to the side, kind of out of commission.
Yeah, he smashed him to the ground a few times, and then one punch, and Hawkman is out of commission.
I love how much smack Hal Jordan talks, and I feel like in every movie he gets owned.
Yeah. Well, he thinks he's big stuff. I mean, the ring is one of the most powerful weapons in the universe, and he knows that he is a powerful lantern. But this is awesome too. He wraps up Doomsday. And as Doomsday's just looking at him, he's forcing him more and more to try and use more and more power to hold him, and he still shatters it. The ring starts blasting more and more. It gets brighter and brighter.
I do want to point out that Doomsday's eye, when it's revealed, is red. Unlike in the comic where it looked like a human eye, it is red with a black dot.
It looks more menacing.
Yes.
Probably should have been that way in the comic, because he wasn't like a person or anything per se. Like, he was, force evolved to be what he was. And, having like a human looking eye that's like, you would think that it would be more, I don't know, something a little different, something a little sturdier. Although even in the comics, he did have the bones across his eye as like something to protect his eye.
Exactly.
We got Flash face.
We see Doomsday's eye following the Flash as the Flash is moving around him, beating him with his with Hawkman's mace.
And then Batman's explosives. Pretty powerful little explosives to blow off more of that containment suit off his head.
Yes.
Exposing the halo.
And it reveals his head, his hair. And I love Batman's got balls.
Yeah, he really does. But he does a very good job. All the powerhouses are trying to do something, but he does an extremely good job of being a distraction. That's what Batman is in this fight, is a distraction.
We're at a
to
lab
take
with
Doomsday's mind off from destroying his friends.
We're at a version of Cadmus where they're working on clone technology. We have a bunch of very deformed-looking creatures.
Yeah.
They're talking about replicating DNA, more durable code. And, they mention, getting a sample basically of Doomsday. And then he says, what about this one, the prototype? And it's, it's still growing, Lex. And it's in a suit, and it's basically the new 52 Superboy containment suit. Where Superboy...
Yes.
Superboy
red
and
and
52 had a very convoluted history. And I think I'm curious if they're going to go with the clone of Superman type Superboy thing being a Lex Luthor Superman, hybrid.
Right.
All right, so Batman threw more bombs. More of Doomsday is revealed. Now a side chest, side face.
Yep, his shoulder. You see a lot of the bones protruding from his body, out of his chest and out of his shoulders. And then we're at the Ace of Clubs, Bibbo's restaurant down on the docks. And he's telling Superman's story, just being all super fan.
Yeah, I mean, you can order super slaw and super sauce.
Super fries.
I mean, I'd go there. So Lois said, "What do you want to talk about?" And this is just great because, like I said, it's Superman and he's nervous, and it's like he's trying to. And Lois is like accepting the fact she thinks he wants to break up.
I like how the first thing he tells her is who he is here.
Yes. I like what he's
staring at her all serious. I'm Superman. She gets a good laugh. Like she couldn't imagine that the guy she's been dating is Superman.
I love this. They're in a restaurant. I mean, he takes off the glasses and says, "Look at me." And like she's looking, and then all of a sudden you see it in her face.
Yeah.
Like he
good animation.
He doesn't open his shirt to show it, or he doesn't like pick her up to fly or anything like that. Like he just tells her. And then she's like, "You were too good. You wait, this is unethical. You wrote stories about yourself." He's like,
"Yeah, but only a couple of times. I really wanted the job."
You never take vacations, you never sweat, you never tan. Are those even your parents?
They are, but it's complicated.
You're from another planet. It's like, yeah.
I'm just a guy from a small town who wants to do the right thing. That's Superman. It's a guy from a small town who just wants to do the right thing.
And then he's like telling her, like, I do want to point out that it's interesting that Lois's eyes are purple. Because that's usually a choice they make for like Atlanteans. It is just an interesting thing. Lois gets a.
You know what? I wonder if that's a callback to the animated series, because her eyes were like purple in the animated series.
And I mean, Jimmy's are like stark green too. It's neat.
Yeah.
Lois gets a call about a creature, and then she turns around. Clark left money and a thing that says "My Last Secret," and then we see him in the alley running, glasses off, shirt rip, boom.
Yep.
My last secret. I love you. And then you hear him fly away in the distance. She comes running out.
I love that she hears the boom of him taking off from inside. And then that's when she runs out.
And then there's the Daily
Then the helicopters. Yes, the chopper landing in the street. Cyborg gets his arm ripped off.
And then there's Aquaman on top of him, like shoving the trident. Martian Manhunter's punching him with 4 arms. I think this is neat. He goes like...
I was, at this point, just knowing the character of Doomsday, I was almost convinced that he would somehow, as he hit him, he would disable his intangibility. Like, I was sure at one point that after he hit him so many times, that one time he would just hit him and he would be solid just because.
Yeah. I love the exposition we get in the story with, Martian Manhunter trying to read Doomsday mind, and basically it's like, there's no real thoughts, just a killing machine. And then Doomsday takes Martian Manhunter out by throwing him basically into an explosion and fire. And there's Batman again.
Being the distraction.
Knowing basically, oh crap.
Yeah.
Side down, arm ripped off.
I like that how he's, we just got here. 3 Justice League members down. This, this creature is just tearing them apart.
Doomsday sees the big city and is heading there. Batman's got a broken arm or his shoulder out of place. We can take this creep. Come on. I mean, I got to give it up to Cyborg for being hardcore, but man.
Yeah.
There's Wonder Woman. She's, beaten, and she looks,
And Rosario Dawson doing her voice since Throne of Atlantis. And
I love this line. We need you, Clark.
Yeah. Like if Wonder Woman is getting beat down, like we need you.
And I think it's a great way, like I said, of scaling up Doomsday's ferocity of starting with these different Justice Leaguers and, going back to the book. In the book, we talked about, we met Justice League members that we didn't care about. They were Justice League of United or International at the time.
Yeah, I think International was what it was.
And it was all characters were the only one we really cared about was Booster Gold, But now, this is the top tier, grade A Justice League members that he's making his way through. I think that's pretty sweet right there where Wonder Woman's hairband breaks and it's just her hair is free and you see how long it is. And it's just makes her look that much more wild.
Mm-hmm.
She's getting beat.
She's mean too. She is no slouch in this. I mean, she's done a lot of stuff in these other movies, but she is no slouch when it comes to this. She is fighting him. She swings him around and smashes him into that semi. He starts launching cars at her and she dodges them. And, she slices that car in half, which no matter what, slicing a car in half with a regular sword is much more impressive than any other thing. But then she catches the half of the car.
I know.
And hits him with it twice, destroying it into pieces, and he's still just coming. It's not even phasing him.
He punches her sword blade, breaking it, and then punches her.
I love the slow motion, though, where she sees the sword. She's startled at the sword being broken, but his fist is still coming right through it. And then he pounds on her. He lays into her 6 times into the ground. This film is brutal. They wouldn't show stuff like this on TV in cartoons these days. You can't show somebody getting pounded like that into the ground over and over again.
Boom. Superman shows up. Heat vision knocks him away from Wonder Woman and pushes him back. No, I completely agree. And I'm almost surprised that this didn't get an R rating for as much, violence and blood and content compared to how Justice League Dark was rated R. And that one almost forgot was rated R. It doesn't feel like it as much.
There was only a couple of things that put that into a soft R.
Hell to Pay, Suicide Squad's definitely an R.
So
here we have this very BBS looking shot of him standing there with his cape. And now Doomsday on fire, completely now, just basically wearing the containment suit pants, shorts. He's roaring. And he's going to come running at Superman. Superman goes running at him. They catch each other's fists, and you just feel the aftershock because all the glass breaks.
Yeah.
And here's that classic of they're holding each other, and he's pushing Superman into the ground. And he just looks nuts. Now, what did you think about that? Where Doomsday all of a sudden has heat vision.
I mean, seeing as it's kind of a thing now, there's a lot of shots in this. They give a lot of homage to BVS. I mean, especially considering the end, which I'm not going to say until we get there. They give a whole lot of homage to BVS in this battle. Lots of comparative shots. I mean, big time.
We got Bibbo real quick saying, hey, if you want to stay here while Superman cleans this guy's clock, you're welcome to stay here at my place. Just like my buddy Soups is always there for us. I mean,
yeah. I had no problem with it. I thought it was good. I don't have a problem with Doomsday with heat vision. The big explosive energy wave is one thing, but I don't have a problem with the heat vision. Plus, I love the way it looks in this.
In this context of this, I kind of look at it as almost like Doomsday is absorbing the energy and then channeling it back. Because we don't know, if he's Kryptonian or what he is. And, we discussed this before about, in the book, there's no hint at Doomsday's origin. There's no hint that Doomsday is Kryptonian. I need to look up when that actually became something in the storyline. When did Doomsday actually?
I mean, it wasn't Hunter Prey, but I don't know specifically when Hunter Prey came out.
Yeah.
I know it was in the 90s. I can say that much, in the later 90s at least. But, and kind of talking about his origin here in this movie and his possible origin, his origin period, and then his possible origin in this movie. We know in Justice League War that Superman was taken to Apocalypse. So, and the fact that Doomsday was brought through a boom tube sent to Earth, like, I'm wondering if there's a correlation there of Superman's time on Apocalypse and then Doomsday's being sent to Earth.
That is a really good. That's a really good thought. I didn't even think about that. I feel stupid, but so Superman's battling Doomsday on a bridge.
Oh, this is such an excellent part of the fight. Superman saving a mother and her child, and that was so cool. The car.
He stops the car.
The car gets,
from the man, while still getting beat by Doomsday. We see Doomsday's got him by the head, just punching him, smacking him in the ground.
Rips through the car and pulls him through it.
There's the fight scenes I watched. I watched the special features on this, and if you get a chance, I recommend it to anybody. They had a fight choreographer who does martial arts, and I can't remember his name, help really design these fights about the way that they use the elements around them to make the fight scenes really great between Doomsday and Superman.
The frame of that semi tail right there, and he smashed it on Doomsday, and Doomsday just came back at him. That is one thing that I do love about this fight. It's so good. Everything around is used. The trailer from the truck, the frame. Here where he ties up.
Yep.
He's got the suspension cable from the bridge, which is hundreds of thousands of pound pressure, test line pressure.
We see Superman breathing heavy and blood coming off of Superman.
Yeah. Like, this is a time where he gets to catch his breath here, and Doomsday is like, he's struggling and he's destabilizing the entire bridge, being tied to it with the suspension cables.
Joey, the little boy with his mom, goes running after his video game as everyone else is running the other way. Doomsday.
I love this here too. With Doomsday getting more angry
and growing,
getting strong. Yeah, getting stronger, getting more angrier, and the bones start protruding, start growing.
So Joey's about to get hit by a bunch of rubble from the bridge. We see the fear in his face, and the next shot, Superman's holding him. As the rubble.
Which you didn't see Superman come in that shot. You didn't see it, but you heard that little, that little sound effect just real fast in there. So he got it.
He just smiles and tells the kid that everything's going to be okay. And the kid comes back and gives him a hug. Superman gives him a hug.
That's why he does what he does. Just to save people.
And then he has to take off to fly to go fight Doomsday some more, who threw a boat at him.
I love how he turns it back around, though. But then Doomsday just smashes it to pieces as it comes at him.
I love if you watch this, Superman's trying to get Doomsday away from people. But Doomsday keeps pushing back and going back towards the people. And it's like, because neither of them can really get an edge up, like, he really can't get Doomsday away.
That part where he just flew by and snatched him by his hair, yanked him down through the bridge into the water.
And then it follows up with where you see Superman get punched. He goes flying back, and then Doomsday leaps through the air and catches Superman and just drags him to the street. And we see the Kents are watching. The Kents are in Metropolis, and they're watching on TV while this is happening.
And there he gets his, face punched into the ground again. And then here's a shot from the comic, the Daily Planet helicopter coming down and Superman catching and saving the helicopter.
Lois and Jimmy are inside, just
It's going out of control, and then all of a sudden it stops. And they're
Superman
down.
breathing heavy, Jimmy rolling, Lois there. Superman falls back. You see he's weak. I mean, she says, I've got you. You've got me, but who's got you?
Turn around from Superman 78.
We need to call in the cavalry. Superman says, I am the cavalry. That's truth.
Yeah.
And like BA line too. Like he knows you can't go back after that thing. It's suicide. Lois says.
So is following in the chopper.
Doomsday's just roaring and running. I mean, he's ferocious.
Yeah. Exact word I was going to use.
I mean, that's how he should be. Like,
and then this shot here, I mean, that impact, like
the slow motion, his face, mid swing, he hits him
tail
into the sky.
Explodes. The tail from the helicopter explodes.
And then I
love
this.
that how he chases.
He's shooting him, and then this is a Man of Steel reference right here with the punch and the flying.
Yeah, but then he comes in and Doomsday's ready for him and just clocks him and catches him by the cape.
I love that because, like, you know, he goes to hit him, and Doomsday hits him first, and then he's headbutting him straight down as they fall. I mean, like I said, he's trying
this whole time. Yeah, this whole time towards the ground, I mean, he's just in his face over and over again on top of him as they're crashing to the ground. And if Lois and Jimmy would have got there to that corner like a second before, they'd have been crushed by a car.
You know, and they're on the ground. Superman's come from behind before, and boom, there's Doomsday, like, out. Jimmy's camera's on the ground. And now, this is a difference, you know, from the book and everything. Lex Luthor shows up in a very odd-looking Lex suit. You know, he's shooting some sort of ray, and he's giving this whole speech about, you know, are you supposed to scare us? The Justice League, blah, blah, blah. You know, this is a little add-on that I don't mind, you know? But, you know, it's Luthor trying to, you know, coming at the 11th hour after Doomsday's been fighting Superman to try to take some credit and, you know, finish him off and get the glory. You know, Metropolis as always has been under the protection of Lex Luthor, blah, blah, blah.
And he calls him an SOB.
And then he looks psychotically crazy inside his suit. And then boom, Doomsday with the heat vision again. Lex did not see that coming.
See, and that's kind of the thing. We know that Doomsday's origin is Kryptonian, and you know, obviously the heat vision thing would come from there. You know, so the only other thing that I feel is just kind of that same throwback. You know, maybe it has a correlation with Superman's time on Apokolips. And then this here too, when he throws Lex Luthor, Superman catches him the instant before he's going to smash into that cement pillar.
You know, and I mean, it just shows Superman, like, he saved Lex. You know? And Lex is all pissed because Superman saved him. And
well, not that he saved him, but that Lex didn't get to do what he wanted. He didn't get to kill Doomsday. He didn't get to take a piece of his take a piece of him for genetic research.
You know, here's Superman, he's bleeding. His costume is torn to shreds. You know, we don't have the hairy chest, though. I love this shot of, like, both of them flying towards each other, ready to punch, and they both connect. I mean, and just, you feel the aftershock. I mean, it knocks the building down. It pushes back Jimmy and Lois. Like, it's a brawl, and you feel it.
Yeah.
Some of these shots that look like they're, like, point of view. And, I mean, Lois is looking on in terror. Like, even more now than she would have beforehand. And it's like, nothing can stop Doomsday.
Yeah. He just keeps rampaging.
Here he is walking to Superman, who's down.
He even dodges this punch and then just throws him to the ground. And that right there,
tape, wraps around his neck and pulls it back with it. and then rips it and tosses it back.
Which is pretty awesome, though, the way he's pulling, the way he's choking on him. And then he just, the way he kicks him, he kicks him so hard that kicking his head into the ground actually ripped the cape from his body, or, from around his neck.
I love Lois throws a rock at Doomsday just to get him to leave Clark alone.
And then here we come. Doomsday's walking towards her, and he's in some pain. He's got some more bones growing. Got some bone spikes, bone swords coming out of his fists.
And Lois says, "I got your note, Clark." And she's whispering it. And she says, "I love you too." As she's crying, as Doomsday's going to kill her. And I mean, it's important because you just see Clark gather all of his might.
Everything he has left. Mm-hmm. And then the reason they had to have drawn this is from that image in the lens of Jimmy's camera in the book, yes, where it looked like Doomsday's head's on backwards.
Yes, because this is amazing. He comes flying at Doomsday full force, jacks him in the jaw, and basically breaks his neck, spinning his head around backwards.
Yeah.
And just, it was...
And it had to have been that rotation, from getting hit, plus swinging at him with the spike coming out of his arm.
Because here we noticed that Doomsday's head's on backwards, but his stone spike is inside Superman. Completely
through Superman.
Which, to me, I'm kind of okay, how? Because, if Doomsday, he's part Kryptonian or whatever, what was it that was able to, penetrate Superman's skin and kill him? In BVS, it's because, Clark's holding the kryptonite spear, which weakens him. So in this, getting into the science.
Well, even obviously in this film and beyond, there wasn't much blood in BVS, even though it was rated R. There wasn't much blood in it. There's more blood in this than there was in that. But as the fight progresses here, the sheer impact, because Doomsday is more powerful and more durable than Superman is. He can actually penetrate his skin. He can break his skin, being made of a similar genetic material or even stronger, he can break the skin, so that bone protrusion is stronger than Superman.
I like how we have the Justice League showing up and Batman just lets his emotions out, his hand releases, and we see the flag. This is great shot. Jimmy's filming it and broadcasting live, and we see...
And crying as he's filming it.
We see Superman's cape on the pole, the rebar floating, and it's showing now around the world. Because everybody's watching on their phone, their tablet, TVs. Just there's little Joey crying. And then Bibbo sitting in his bar. Just seeing that image. Holding his picture of him and Soups. And I'm tearing up. I ain't afraid to admit it.
Yeah, it's an emotional punch. It really is.
It is. Like I said, if you watch the continuity films and lead up to it, it'll hit you even harder. Now we're at the Superman Memorial, and the mayor's giving a speech. The Kents are there, and we have a cop who asked us to back up, and he asked, "Is she going to be okay?" And it's just a big loss for everyone. They can't even grieve their son like everyone else. And the officer says, Superman was kind of like family.
I expected her to bust out even more at that point when he said that, but it didn't happen.
The rest of the Justice League are standing there straight-faced, but Cyborg has a sadness on his face. And Aquaman looks pissed, Wonder Woman looks sad, Batman's not there. He's at home with Alfred and Julia.
I love how they have Damian and what's the dog's name? Ace. Yes.
I like how Damian puts his arm around his father.
Yeah. And that shows where they've come too, because, from Son of Batman and Batman versus Robin, Justice League versus Teen Titans and Teen Titans Judas Contract, Damian's had quite a bit of development as a character. So to show that he actually has, that affection towards his father, especially in this time of mourning when, basically Bruce's best friend
and
is now dead.
Don't forget Bad Blood.
Oh, yeah, Bad Blood. I did, yep.
Because Bad Blood's the last one before Damian gets sent off to join the Titans.
Yeah, and I do like that one. I don't know why I forgot it, because I was thinking earlier when you were saying not to forget Bad Blood. And so, as I said, I like Bad Blood because, Nightwing's kind of front and center in that one.
Yes. Everybody's crying and sad, and Lois is shattered.
And then they introduced Batwoman, which we're getting Batwoman this year. Woo!
I'm actually about to start reading some more Batwoman. I've read some in the past, but just going to brush up on it. Now, Green Lantern flies up and lights the eternal flame above the Superman statue where he is resting. I always thought the eagle was a little much, I will admit, for the Superman statue.
Yeah. Well, that's...
gets me, man.
That's got to be an American thing.
This gets me hard where, Bibbo's praying.
This is a prayer from the comic book.
I know.
Bibbo actually says,
but they're using prayer. This, as they're using cutscenes, we see Lois with the Kents crying because they're the only people she can mourn with. Bibbo's on a dock praying, saying, God, why would you let Superman die?
When a washed up old roughneck like me goes on living, it ain't right, God.
I just think it's just beautiful,
Yeah.
And we have the Star Labs facility in here, which is cool, and it looks so much like the way they do it on The Flash. We see that Doomsday is at Star Labs, kind of in the basement, and Luthor, is basically Project Catamus is perfect to house this thing, and LexCorp needs a payload rocket to get this thing off the planet, and the Doctor won't release it.
You and your Star Labs bureaucrats can't keep charging me with things I've been cleared. And she says, you may have been cleared, but nobody thinks you're innocent.
And that's what I said. That's what I like about Lex, when people know he's corrupt, but they can't prove it.
Yeah. And then
Superman's ship, his rocket is flying away. It activated on its own.
And Lex Luthor up, and away.
The Daily Planet. How she explained, Clark's death. He gets counted as one of the people that died during Doomsday's attack.
Mm-hmm.
That was always kind of the cover story for him.
Yeah, he was a reporter in a dangerous place and got killed. Doing his job.
Kat says there's people still missing since the attack. He has the best reason to return. And Lois has to put on a brave face. She's shaking. And Jimmy confronting police scanners. Trust me, you'll want to chase this story. Let's go. You drive. They arrive at Superman's gravesite. There's, Turpin and Sawyer. Casket's open. Tomb.
Door busted off.
And then there's someone hovering way up in the sky. Jimmy's trying to zoom in but can't tell, and it flies off. Jimmy says, Superman.
Question mark. Credits.
Now, with the credits, written by Peter J. Tomasi. He's one of my favorite comic book artists. That made me so happy that's why this was so good. Because he rewrote the story of the death of Superman into continuity, and he knew how to do it. And it's kind of surprising that he didn't write the sequel. The Reign of the Superman. But
oh no,
could be maybe because of just the time schedule to do both of them around the same time.
I'm trying to think. Wasn't Tomasi on a Superman book? Wasn't he on Action before? Or was he on or was it? I can't remember if it was Jurgens or Tomasi before Bendis took over. I swore Tomasi was. I could have swore Tomasi.
Tomasi was on Superman.
Okay, Jurgens on Action.
And Jurgens was on Action. Tomasi was also writing Super Sons. He wrote Batman and Robin in the New 52. Okay, so
here we get our first
credit scene is the Superboy kind of busting out, walking out of his tube.
Yeah, the first cutscene. The lab is in pieces. It's sparks and fire, and you just get a glimpse of Superboy walking out of the door, and it's kind of cool. He grabs the leather jacket as homage to Superboy from the 90s, from Reign of Superman.
And I think it's going to be interesting because it seems like they have a good job. Here's our second, John Henry Irons, in the basement, made his steel symbol.
Yeah, you saw the torso pieces, and then him hammering the metal, and then you focuses in on the steel, the Superman shield that he uses.
I think Steel is a cool character because he represents Superman, like what Superman tries to do with the inspiration. Out of the four characters of the reign of the Superman, 2 are good and 2 are evil. I think, like we were saying, Superboy is going to be interesting because it's going to be a nice blend of what they did, I think, with the New 52 version and the 90s version.
Here comes our third post-credit scene. The Kryptonian Cal's ship lands in the Arctic, and the fortress is being built. And it's the Donner Fortress, which,
and then
nobody has a complaint about.
It looks like the Eradicator is all I can imagine is the one who's there. And the Eradicator is always interesting because he has a kind of convoluted history, and they've recently re-brought him up in the comics. So I'm interested to see the kind of through line that they're going to do with him.
Yeah, me too. And I got to assume that's him because the final one at the very end.
It makes sense. I'll say someone that makes sense.
Because the final one here is coming up here very post credits. This is the last thing, and then the movie's completely over with here.
It's just space and cyborg Superman.
The interesting thing,
I love how it shows he flies by and it takes his symbol and pulls it out and makes it the Superman shield into blood, like they did with the death of Superman. And that's the film,
right?
People. That is the film.
Oh, amazing. I love it.
What do you give this as a letter grade?
A.
A++, man. Like, this is top notch.
10 out of 10.
Yes.
10 out of 10.
And I'm not just saying that as a Superman fan. Like, you've heard James and I reviewed, Superman versus the Elite. Phil and I reviewed Superman Unbound, and James and I re-talked about it before Krypton. I like those films. But man, this one, like, I've watched this film at least 4-5 times. I don't know. Like, I could watch it again right now if I wanted to.
Yeah, start it right over again after we're done. Maybe I will have my son lay down with me. My daughter's at a friend's house sleeping, so have my son lay down with me and turn it, and he'll fall asleep in a little bit, and I'll just finish it again.
I mean, I will say there's more things I pick up each time I watch this film. So that's our review. We don't want to run too long. What are your thoughts, good people? Let us know, and I hope you enjoy the film like we did. Any final thoughts, James?
No, not really. I love it. I know I had said that there was multiple BBS homages in the film, and I know if I were to go through it again, I could probably pick it out. But as we were talking and things like that. Some things kind of missed as we went along, but
maybe next time I'll watch it and I'll try to keep a tally of how many people Doomsday kills.
Yeah, I think we got away from that pretty quick.
Yeah, we lost track.
Well, he kills so many people so fast. I mean, and when it comes to just regular people, I mean, one hit and they're dead. I mean, as he was fighting the Justice League, he laid a bunch of them out with one hit. So those are superpowered beings.
So that was
incredible movie.
Incredible movie.
Total recommend.
That was The Death of Superman, the 2018 animated film. Check it out. Remember,
Look up in the sky.
Look up in the sky.
look up in the sky. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Krypton Report. You can also email us at kryptonreportpod@gmail.com. If you get a chance to go over to iTunes, please leave us a review to help us get better. If you're an Amazon shopper, just remember you can go to southgatemediagroup.com. There's a portal log into Amazon, and you'll shop into your account just regular, but it also helps keep all the podcasts on and helps keep Southgate running. Remember, look up in the sky.